Make Me Smart is supported by Geico. Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do. Fortunately, Geico makes it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. It's a good thing, too, because having a home is hard work. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. Geico.com. Easy.
Make Me Smart is supported by Plastic. Cash flow. It's important when you're running and growing a business, and that's why you should know about Plastic. Plastic is the smart payment platform that lets companies pay virtually any expense with a credit card and get paid by card without any merchant fees. You can have better cash flow control because Plastic gives your business the choices you need. Try it at plastiq.com.
Look at that silence before we started. How about that?
It's because we're coming in hot.
That's right.
Hey, everyone, I'm Molly Wood.
That's right.
Welcome back to Make Me Smart. No time for chit-chat.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday after a holiday weekend. None of us is as smart as all of us.
So Molly said it's Tuesday, which means we're doing a deep dive into a single topic today, along with what I anticipate will be some other things that will happen serendipitously in this conversation. We're talking about just because given you and me and the guest,
exactly.
downward economic mobility, right? Which was a thing before the pandemic. It's a thing that's worse because of the pandemic. And oh, by the way, it's going to be worse now, too.
Yeah, it used to be the case, and I don't believe that this is empirical. This is not one of those things where it's like it used to be better in the olden days.
That's right.
But empirically, it used to be the case, economically at least, that each future generation did better than the one before. That is not the case anymore, equally empirically. So today we're going to talk with someone who considers herself the brand ambassador for downward mobility, unexpected downward mobility. She wrote a book about how she got a divorce, lost her health insurance, had her car repossessed, tried out the gig economy for a while, had a major health crisis, and that all of this took her from a place of what she thought was relative stability to what we are calling today downward mobility.
Annabelle Gurwitch is an actress. She's an author. She co-hosts a podcast called Tiny Victories. She's also got a new book out. It's called You're Leaving When? Adventures in Downward Mobility. Annabelle, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back. You were on years and years ago, I think it
Early
was.
on.
Yeah, early on.
Yeah.
Actually, I think in the studio, too, as opposed to whatever it is that we're doing now.
Yes. Oh, the studio people.
I know, right?
I know. Oh, how things have changed. Wow.
That's right.
On so many levels.
So, Annabelle, let me start with this. Author, actress, podcast host, and yet somehow downwardly mobile? How do those four things fit together?
Yeah. I mean, you could just add, like, I sell books out of the back of my car because every author does that. How does someone get to be downwardly mobile? I mean, in my case, it's it's a generational thing for one thing. I'm a Gen X or really a cusper in between the boomers, and Gen X really. But Gen X and us cuspers, we just missed out on that greater financial security that boomers had. We came into the job market expecting and starting out with jobs that had benefits and pensions, but then everything changed on us, but we still had the expectations of the boomers, but we don't have that kind of economy. And so I'm writing about my own experiences. Also, I'm a freelancer. I've been an artist. I mean, and I'm very fortunate. I've earned a living as an artist for 30 years. It hasn't always been the best living, but I have done that. And the thing is though, we as a generation find ourselves in a very vulnerable position. Here we are about to be the age where one used to retire. I call us a never retirement generation because really, no one I know expects to retire, to have the funds to retire, even though some people since the pandemic have done the big quit. They've said, how much do I need to live on? Because I just can't afford to keep working because I'm not making enough to be on this treadmill, because it's like a gig economy for artists. And then, we're entering this age where we're close to our never retirement. And we also have children who are Gen Z just entering the workforce. So I've got a kid who graduated during COVID, class of 2020. What a time. So, I've got my expenses for them. They're actually, so we're just a generation that is downwardly mobile.
It's close to. Well, let's talk about this idea of. I mean, I think one of the things that's so striking about your book, and actually parallels your experience, which we'll talk about later, of taking in homeless youth.
Yes.
Is that it seems like in some ways you discovered you're so much closer to the edge than you thought. In the beginning of the book, you write about how it's going to be fine, provided that the union pension comes through, provided that you keep working, provided that all these things happen. And it only takes one or two of those things to not happen to tip someone over from, okay to not okay.
Oh, that's so true, Molly. I mean, that's the thing is, I didn't realize how precarious a situation we're all in. I mean, until this moment where I realized, okay, so if I sell my house, because divorce, right, always a destabilizer. And after the divorce, I could sell the house, but then where am I going with the housing costs? So, like many people, I've got these extra bedrooms and a low mortgage, but I can't afford to move and downsize. And that led me to the home share economy and to renting out, rooms in my house. And, I felt like I had much more in common with my unhoused youth that I was housing for a small stipend. No one gets rich when they do this, but it was an extraordinary experience to realize how the housing explosion and cost of housing brought our experiences so much closer together, and also actually how we could help each other, because if you have extra bedrooms and you can house people in them, you don't need to build infrastructure to house the unhoused. And honestly, it was after I got over the fear that they were going to murder me in my sleep.
Okay, not to be taken lightly, but look, let me let me ask you this, right?
Yeah.
Had you not been, just in terms of the homelessness situation, right, and you taking them in for a modest stipend from, I guess it was the County of Los Angeles, do you think you would have done that had downward mobility not been impressed upon you as a result of all these things that happened? That's the catch.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
No, I was certain that they were going to murder me. I also had this idea that people who were experiencing homelessness, and I consider myself a very progressive person, I had otherized them. And what I didn't realize was, the first day they moved in, they called their moms. And I was like, what, people experiencing homelessness have mothers that they're in touch with? I just didn't realize who was unhoused. And honestly, it was such an amazing, transformative experience for me that I listen, if you got an extra bedroom, I'd like to recruit you, because these programs are now in 40 cities around the country. It's really an extraordinary experience. And also, it's actually been really fun for me to have young people in my house again. Of course, right now, my child has just returned home again, and I've got to have, now that people are vaccinated, some new tenants coming in. So I've got a full house here, but it is part of my economy. And one of the things I wanted to write this book is about, I challenge myself, can I write a book about downward mobility that isn't just a weeper? And what I did find is, while no one says, oh gosh, I really want to be downwardly mobile, the experiences that I had, I have to say, have created more empathy and added a lot of joy to my life if you adapt to your situation. And that's not to say anyone wants to be in a situation where you can't meet your basic needs, though.
I think one of the things I found striking is that you talk about meeting up with a friend and discovering that she's in a similar situation as you, financially and in terms of trying to find really cheap healthcare, that when you're housing these kids, you have this moment where you think the phrase "no fault of your own" floats through your head. We tend to sort of stigmatize and demonize people for not being able to stay afloat. And it just feels like that's really unrealistic. And that's the really relatable part of the story that you're telling.
Thank you for saying that. And I have to say, I'm definitely a person. I see people on their Instagram and their Facebook pages, people I don't know and people I know. And I think their lives look like they've got everything managed. And that's just not always true. And that is part of one of the reasons why I have continued to write about economic fragility. And it's something I've been interested in since I was a kid, and I had a very chaotic childhood financially. And there was a lot of shame associated with that. So, it's always been this thought of, well, can we talk about this, being a person who is, successful in their field, but still experiences economic insecurity? And people always said, okay, you first. So I have done that. And I just want to say it's so shocking to me, but it really shouldn't be. One of my best friends, 25-year veteran of the LA public school system. She's a teacher. She's so amazing. Well, her dryer broke during COVID and she just couldn't afford on her salary to replace her dryer. She's line drying her clothes. She's like living on the prairie right now in Los Angeles. And she's a teacher at LAUSD. This is not people through, any fault of their own. It's not like she's going out and spending money on bling, what I mean? We just have the wrong idea of whose economies are unstable.
There's no small amount of "there but for the grace of God go I" to your story and this book and what happened to you, right? There was a health scare and COVID, and there's all kinds of things. And I guess I want you to talk for a second about the feeling of fragility that you must have now every time you turn around.
Well, yeah. I think, vulnerability is also a word that I think about every day. I feel much more vulnerable than I thought I was. Also, while I was writing this book, I went in for a COVID test at a urgent care, and Molly, I was sure that they were trying to upsell me at this urgent care in a mini mall next to a Trader Joe's when they said, you should have a lung x-ray. Because I said I had a little cough, just because they said, do you have any COVID symptoms? I said, it's no big deal. I don't need it. And my kid was with me and said, well, Mom, you have been coughing a lot. But I was sure it was like the cosmetic counter. You go in for mascara and they try to sell you the expensive moisturizer. Well, I agreed to do the x-ray. We're on the freeway on the way home. And actually, this is the part that's like a zombie apocalypse movie. My car breaks down. We're on the side of the road. AAA is not coming because there's a pandemic. And I get a call from the urgent care, and it's the doctor saying, I'm sorry, there's been a terrible mistake, because they had told me before we left that the x-ray looked fine. He said, I read the wrong x-ray. You have a mass on one of your lungs. And that was the beginning of this health odyssey. It's not just a scare. I have stage 4 lung cancer. It's in both of my lungs. And I'm a really healthy person. I exercise every day. I'm not a smoker. It turns out to be an epidemic, particularly amongst women in the United States, and we don't really know why. But this is fortunate for me. If you're going to get lung cancer, you want to do it now. I mean, this sounds terrible, but there's all these new drugs, and I'm able to take a medication that's a gene-targeted therapy, which, by the way, costs $500 a dose. Now, there are different insurances that cover different amounts. Mine is being covered right now, but there are people in the support groups that I go to who are paying thousands and thousands of dollars out of pocket. I am as well for other unreimbursable expenses. But what this means now for me is I'm enjoying a good quality of life right now, but it's treated like a chronic illness that I will potentially have for the rest of my life that has to be managed. And when that happens to you as an American, unless you're in the top 1%, you are vulnerable. Your economic plans have gone out the window, and there's just how do you plan for that without universal health care? You got me.
Yeah.
I hope to keep working for the rest of my life, but I'm also going to be campaigning for universal health care because even closer to the, I didn't even know this, before I started writing the book about an adventure in downward mobility, and yet I'm really fortunate. I'm in a much...
I mean, it is just sort of, as we were saying, it seems like it is just an example, a really obviously painful and personal example. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing all right of that fragility, the sort of never knowing what it's going to be, whether it's divorce, a kid going to college, a change in healthcare plans, an actual health crisis that can put you in this situation, and that everybody is almost there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very American experience, and I like to make it clear when I talk about this that the writing of the book it's my story in the greater zeitgeist. People have offered to do GoFundMe campaigns for me. I don't need that right now. But one of the reasons why I am writing about this and I use my own story is a third of the GoFundMes right now are for medical expenses. And so I'm writing to, this generation and to the experience of being American along with my own. I'm still so fortunate that I had a long career as an actress and as a writer that has a union because, that has provided a modicum of security for me. I'm super lucky. My friends call me the squirrel because whenever I've made large amounts of money as an artist, I've always squirreled it away, which is, I'm really glad about that now. I never traded in.
It's a good strategy, actually.
Yes,
it's really good advice.
Yes, the squirrel. Every artist needs to get those
right.
The squirrel techniques going. Yeah.
Annabelle Gurwitch, kind of an amazing story the last couple of years since we had her on. Actress, author. The book is called You're Leaving When? Adventures in Downward Mobility. And Annabelle, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you coming on.
Take good care. Keep us up to date.
Oh, thanks, guys. Love to talk economy. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon.
We should say we've got a chapter from the audiobook version of You're Leaving When? That goes on the show page. I think Tony Wagner is going to hook us up there. Otherwise, so close. There but for the grace of God, right? Unbelievable.
I mean, we are all there, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not any one of us. I mean, I think that's what I find so profound about this is that any single one of us is there at any minute and no help is coming.
No help is coming.
Yeah. Anyway, we're headed to a break. Not trying to bring us down at all. Annabelle is, and at least God love her, Annabelle can write about this in the funniest possible way. Send us your comments on today's show, your, personal state of fragility and mobility. You can do that in an email or a voice memo, makemesmart@marketplace.org. We'll be right back.
Make Me Smart is supported by Battelle. For over 90 years, Battelle has solved the world's most pressing problems, from cyber and microelectronic security to neurotechnology, to making our drinking water safe from harmful chemicals like PFAS, to predicting the next pandemic and supporting our troops around the world. Battelle scientists and technicians are up to the challenges, because at Battelle, it can be done. Learn more at battelle.org/smart.
Hey, it's Jed Kim, host of Million Bazillion, the podcast from Marketplace that answers the questions your kids have about money. We've got a brand new season out now. That's more answers to the awesome, weird, and not so easy questions your kids have about money and how it works. Million Bazillion. We help dollars make more sense. Check it out.
All right. We will do some news. My news is that today is the 6th of July, which makes it 6 months since the 6th of January. And just because we talked about so many things that have happened in this society since then on Friday and how it's tricky to talk about it and it's fact-based and all that stuff. But still, it's something that has to be addressed even as you try to maintain some kind of perspective on things. I wanted to do two things today. Number one is point out that it's been 6 freaking months since the events of 6 January, but also that the United States Capitol Police, because there are such serious threats against members of Congress of the United States because of the events of January the 6th, they're opening field offices about as far away as you can get from the freaking Capitol. In California, in Florida, I guess Alaska and Hawaii would be farther, but the Capitol Police are out there sort of expanding their range because people are threatening members of Congress. And I just want to make a note of that and say that that's just ridiculous. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep. I'm going to do a quick follow-up that I think is super important. We talked a little bit on the show here and there about Nikole Hannah-Jones, the Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who conceived the 1619 Project, being denied tenure at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Then we talked about how she had been granted tenure. And I think I made the side comment of like, yeah, but how would you want to work there? Turns out she didn't want to work there. And Howard University, and this is just so interesting because, historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, are really having a moment. They've seen a tremendous increase in donations and attention and I don't want to say legitimacy, more respect, as elite learning institutions. Howard swooped in and scooped up Nikole Hannah-Jones and, as it happens, the writer Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's going to be a writer in residence there. And one thing I think is interesting about this from the journalism nerd perspective is that one of the things Nikole Hannah-Jones has been tweeting about a lot lately is how the idea of race and racism and systemic inequality needs to be a beat in newsrooms. And because it flavors all of American history and most of the things that we report about, whether it's the economy or business or politics, anything. And that's what she's going to do there. She's basically like starting a new journalism program around this concept.
Which is cool. Yeah.
It is a good outcome. And then in things that we thought were settled, but will never be settled and are just endlessly dishy as far as cloud computing contracts can be.
Okay, wait. Endlessly dishy about cloud computing contracts. Please, go on.
Seriously?
Tell me more.
Like, this is so much drama in the military defense contract world. Okay, so for years now, there's been this project to get the Pentagon on the cloud. It's known as the JEDI project and the joint, I don't know. I don't even know what everybody just calls it JEDI now. But the idea is modernize military internet infrastructure, get it all in the cloud.
Right.
And the bidding process had been ongoing. Amazon was the clear front runner. In fact, a lot of companies had complained that like the specs for the entire contract, which is $10 billion, had been almost written for Amazon. That was a big complaint from Oracle, whose founder went directly to his friend President Trump. There have been accusations that Trump intervened in this personally as this was going on because it had been awarded to Amazon, and then they came along and they said, no, you can't do that. And then it was awarded to Microsoft, and then Amazon appealed, and then they were like, nah, it turns out there was nothing wrong. And, we talked to experts who said initially the specs favored Amazon, but Microsoft just sort of slowly built up the capability, and they have the technical know-how to do this. And everybody thought it was sort of done, even though it had been very problematic, shall we say. And then now they tore it up. They tore up the contract all over again, and they're going to start over.
And they're done. Yeah.
Then they're starting over, and it's just so crazy. Yeah. This is not how you want this stuff to go when billions of dollars, and by the way, the like future warfighting capability of the United States of America is on the line. Like, I know all business involves people, but this is like crazy.
It is kind of dishy. I know I made fun of you, but
it's
it is
pretty
kind of
dishy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's my news today.
All right. Good deal.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's it for the news fix, and now it's your turn to talk. Let's do the mailbag.
Hello, Molly and Kai.
It's Brianna from Phoenix.
Ivan from Brooklyn, New York.
Long-time listener, first-time voicemailer.
I want to discuss a slightly different, but maybe related thing.
Okay, we're going to do all of that. First up is Suzanne in Orlando, FLA. Orlando, I love you. Sorry.
Nice.
I wanted to weigh in on the cell phone plan discussion. I am not a parent, but am a 29-year-old still on the family plan.
Wow.
Most all of my friends are in the same boat. The consensus seems to be that once you're married, that's when you get your own plan. I will add that I do pay my parents the fee for having my additional line, but it's definitely cheaper than me having my own plan for just my own line. Hope this gives a different perspective, and thanks for always making me smart. And P.S. to my dad, who also listens, please don't kick me off.
Oh, man. All right. So look, I said, 26 seems to be like health insurance. Why can't we do 26 for phone plans? And here's a 29-year-old saying she's still on her plan, although she does pay something for having her parents take care of her. But holy cow.
It is kind of interesting, though, the way that the cell phone companies kind of incentivize your kids staying on your plan forever, and in fact actually punish you for being single or even, heaven forbid, two people, because the more lines you have, the cheaper it is. Like if you just want to pay for your own cell phone plan, just as a freestanding adult in the world, you just get screwed.
You get host, yeah.
Like you pay like 3 times as much as you would pay if you joined up with 3 other people. So you can actually see why it just becomes easier over time and, frankly, a better economic deal to keep your kid on your plan forever. Totally. That's such a weird... Anyway, 29. Okay.
29 is
the target.
Yeah, and also getting
moving.
The whole married thing. I don't know about that either, but anyway.
Yeah, because you don't have to do that either. But that's the economic.
Right. But
marriage is a construct. This is literally how like Verizon is out here incentivizing, the most, I don't know, like archaic versions of family structure.
Yeah.
There have to be 4 of you and no more, no less.
Right.
All right. Before I get too far down this rabbit hole, we got this next voice memo after last week's show, which is a separate but maybe related topic for sure, where a listener called out Kai for not being a fan of the X-Files.
Hi, Molly and Kai. This is Robin from the proudly anarchistic jurisdiction of Portland.
Wow.
I agree that it's amusing to dump on Kai for lack of sci-fi knowledge. But the other day, he whipped out a reference to the Kobayashi Maru without even hitting the proverbial clutch.
That's true.
So I want to say that with sufficient Star Trek street cred, he really doesn't need The Expanse or The X-Files or anything else. Love the show and love how you both interact while making us smarter.
Oh, man. Boom, there you go. So I've got Star Trek street cred.
And that is enough, apparently. That does it.
Clearly.
That's it. He can never be doubted again.
You said it, not me, man.
No, he said it.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm not sure
That's
I'm
right.
buying it. I'm just saying, Robin
Fair
was
enough.
like, you're good now, buddy. You're
Fair
good.
enough. Fair enough.
And then for your feedback in helping us shape our show here, last week I asked you to send your ideas for a Monday-themed show. You have ideas. Mark in Switzerland suggested, What Did You Miss Monday? He also said, by the way, that Thursdays maybe should be rebranded to something a little less bummer, such as, he said, Think and Thrive Thursday.
I know we've talked about rebranding Hollowed Out Shell of a Thursday, but I think everybody needs a moment where it's okay to just despair. And I like to think that that's our 15 minutes. I'm just saying.
Thursday's always been, even before pandemic and,
tough days.
just
Very
ongoing like partisanship, Thursday's always my tired day.
You bet.
Tuckered out Thursday.
You bet. Shane in Virginia, Mindfulness Mondays. I don't know. Not feeling that one.
Yeah. Stephanie suggested Money, Money Mondays. She says it's the ABBA reference.
Money, money. Oh, what is that song?
Money, Money Mondays? I don't know. I just get the other.
Money, money, money. Da-na-na. It's a rich man, something, something. Rich man's world, right? Isn't that what it? Get a load of me. Kobayashi Maru,
look at you.
and ABBA. Holy cow.
Yeah,
I'm a
he's got the
pop
musical theater
culture
thing
genius.
nailed.
Hans in Georgia suggested Best Guess Monday, where we tackle topics that have no clear answers. I'm not upset with that one. But it's a little vague. But
I'm not going to lie,
we'll
that's
see.
kind of every day, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's be real. Even though we said we make today make sense, it's always our best guess. Shannon suggested I can't even Monday.
Don't hate that.
Which, again, almost every day.
Don't hate that. All right, let's remember, in the pole position is Andrew K. Skinner with What Do We Miss Mondays? So I guess we'll find out on this coming Monday what we're going to do, I guess. And then we'll take it from there.
I guess so. We'll be discussing all week.
That's right.
But still taking suggestions. It'll be a very scientific process. Don't worry.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man.
And before we move on to a series of meetings, presentations, decks, and, ROI analysis on each of these ideas, we're going to leave you with this week's answer to the Make Me Smart question, which is, what is something you thought you knew and you later found out you were wrong about? Today's answer comes from Jose in Florida.
Hey, something I thought I knew but later found out I was wrong about is that I thought that when I would get sick again after the pandemic, I would freak out, lose my mind, go get a COVID test, and act like a fool. But I just got my first cold after going to visit my parents for the first time in a year and a half. They gave me a cold, and you know what? It's been okay. I've recovered fully in 3 days, had a little bit of a runny nose, a little bit of a headache, and everything is fine. We are all fine.
Yeah, I had a cold about a month ago, and it was just weird because you hadn't been sick in 18 months, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? And then you feel crappy for about 3 days, and you get better. It was wild. It was truly wild. Yeah.
That is such a good point, though, that, there were all these predictions that, like, when people start to get to the flu, it's going to be, for one thing, no one did, because turns out masks
work.
And staying home and washing your hands really prevents all kinds of germ transmission. But it's true. Everybody was like, oh, God, the suit, is if you get a cold, you're going to run in there and think it's COVID, and there's going to be this double whammy effect of people with COVID and people with colds. But yeah, Jose makes a good point. Like, oh, yeah, no, we all know what this is. It's a cold.
It's all good. It's all good. Send us... What?
I'm afraid my son's... I'm dreading it. I don't want to get that first cold. My son just started as a CIT, counselor in training, with a bunch of little kids, and I'm like, we're doomed.
Oh, you are doomed. He's
Here
definitely...
Here comes the cold.
It's like daycare when they're little, man. One kid gets sick, and it's just boom, everybody gets sick. Got it. It's all over.
Yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Send us your answers to the Make Me Smart question, would you? Once again, what is something you thought you knew, later found out you were wrong about? MakeMeSmart@marketplace.org is the email address. Voicemails coming soon. Bridget promises she's working on a phone number for us. Otherwise, voice memos and emails are good. And before we go, tip of the hat and a huge, giant thank you to Donna Tam, who I think last Friday wrapped up 6 months with us while people were out and things were changing and all that jazz. Kept the ship, kept the train on the tracks, I guess is what you could say. As much as we
Donna
tried to
Tam
drive it
is
off.
so great. We frequently, mid-show, try to drive this thing right off the tracks, and she is not having it. No, she is creative, delightful, encouraging, and we are so grateful that she was here. And don't worry, Donna Tam has not left. She's staying at Marketplace. She's got a big old kick butt job. And we're grateful.
I'm good.
It was fun to have her. Yep.
Boom.
And that's it.
There we go. Done. Out of here. Leaving.
She might have to do a half full, half empty. That might just be our reward/punishment for being great on the show.
That's a good idea.
Make Me Smart is produced and directed today by Tony Wagner. He's also our digital producer. Erica Phillips writes our newsletter and Smart Speaker Skills. Our intern is Grace Rubin.
Liana Squalache engineered today. Brian Allison's going to mix it down later. Ben Talladay and Daniel Ramirez composed our theme music. The senior producer is Bridget Bonner. The executive director of On Demand is Sitar Nieves. And that's the crew. That's the whole crew.
And that is the show.
Yep. Yeah. Donna really hooked us up. Can't overstate how much Donna hooked us up.
Donna's so great. Do you know we go all the way back to CNET?
Do you really? Oh, I didn't know that.
We worked together at the same time at CNET.
Wow.
When we hired her, I was like, what? No way.
Wow.
I know her.
That's great.
Yeah.